Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to talk about the role of attention and how that relates to success in all domains of life. And when I'm saying attention, I mean giving attention to another person and showing sincere appreciation for their time and being interested in what interests them. When I was in my first role out of university, I was super lucky. I got to work in a finance office where we were doing financial planning essentially for high net worth individuals and business owners. And in that office, I was super lucky. We got great training. I learned how to invest. It was a lifetime of learning in a very short period of time. But one of the best things was they had a library in the back corner of the office. So you could walk into the back, past the advisors' offices, and anyone who had a book that they wanted to share with the floor essentially could leave it there. And it's all sales book. And so when I would go from my house to the office, it was at that time, it was about a 30-minute train ride. So I would pick up a book and I would just skim read it, power through it, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. So I was crushing like a book a week for about a year. So I easily went through 50 sales books, and it was all to try to make myself a better salesperson, more effective at convincing people to give me their hard-earned money so I could invest it. And all of the books were nice and I got good notes and everything was great. But there's one book in particular that encapsulated all the information, the good information of all the other books. And it was actually an older book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Some of you might have already read this book before, but those of you who have not, I really recommend this. I reread this book once a year. I've highlighted the key parts for me, and I keep coming back to the well. The advice there is anecdotal. It's qualitative, is written in the 20s or the 30s. So it's an older book. But if you read the newer literature on sales and human relations, all the advice in that, the common sense advice in this How to Win Friends and Influence People book is essentially parroted or copied in some capacity in the modern literature. So the psychological literature backs up the intuition or the knowledge within this older book. And it's my favorite by far. I haven't read anything better since. It's in my top 5 books. I recommend it. And there's lots of little key tips and tricks within it. But one of the key things is this realm of attention. And that's giving attention back to the person and a sincere appreciation for who they are in the moment. And I'll give you some examples how this has propelled me forward in my career. So when I was in finance, for example, it was sales. There was no one coming into the office. We had to go out into the wild and find people. So that means I had to build rapport with people very quickly and then get them build that reciprocity between us, and then we could do some work. So when I was a bit younger and crazier, 22, 23, I would actually go into random offices in Vancouver, like the towers, and I just pick a random floor and just go floor to floor to floor. And I just go to the front secretary person and I'd say, hey, is there anyone I can talk to who wants to make money? Because I can, buy some mutual funds for you or whatever my line was. And sometimes they would let me through the door and I'd just be in someone's office, usually someone like the boss or the manager or whatever of whatever company I was looking at essentially. And I'd just go on a spiel. And if I went in and just said, here's my pitch, take it or leave it, that would not go very well. So what I did, which had amazing success, I would walk in and if they had an office, I would just look around the room. I didn't even know this person's name. I don't know who they are. I look around the room and I'd say, oh, that picture, can you tell me about that? I'm super curious. And I actually was. You have to be genuine. It can't be false. But I was just I'm going to be super curious about this person because I want to learn. And everyone has something to teach you, by the way. So even if it's like a person you disrespect and you hate them, you can learn what not to do from that person just as much as what to do. So I have time for everybody, whether you're on the bus or at the fancy gala. I'll spend an hour with someone, no problem, because there's lots of insights you can pick up, again, on what to do or what not to do, both valuable pieces of information. So in this case, I have one in mind. I went into a mining conglomerate's office, like a mining company. And I went to this guy at the CEO's office, never met him before in my life, just walked in cold call essentially with my little briefcase. And I just said he had rocks, all along the side of his office. So he had his big desk and then he had all these rocks. And I said, oh, these rocks are so interesting. I'm not particularly interested in rocks, but I was like, oh, these rocks, cool. Tell me about the rocks. And he was like, oh, and at first he was intense. He's 50 years old, who's this idiot looking across me, right? And then his face lit up. He's like, let me tell you about the rocks. And it was super cool. Every rock had a story. So he's like, oh, I was in Peru and I got this rock from there. And then I was in a mine in Indonesia and I got this rock from there. And he told me all these stories. And we talked for 45 minutes maybe just about the rocks on the wall. And I could tell that no one had ever like asked about the rocks. Like his wife didn't ask about the rocks. His daughter didn't ask about the rocks. His son didn't ask about the rocks. But by the end of that 45 minutes, if I said, hey, I'm your new son, he would have brought me into the family. And at the end, he was like, listen, like you're like 21, 22. Like I have many advisors. I'm not a poor person, but he's like, I'll take you on for sure. And he became a client. We did some insurance stuff as opposed to investments. And so that's a good example where like I had no business being in the room, but because he liked me and because I liked him, because I showed genuine praise and appreciation for who he was as a person, this skyrocketed me high up in his books enough to do some business when I guarantee if I was like, here's my pitch, like buy these stocks, bro, like it wouldn't have worked very well, right? Because he's a smart dude. And I gave him good advice, so I was happy with that. I've used this across the board in many other metrics. For example, when I was in law enforcement, in our training, we had this crucible essentially where you had to rank every person in your troop, in your class against each other. And you had to be like really ruthless. So it's like, what are their flaws? These like personality stuff. And in law enforcement, you can't lie. That's like the number one rule. So if you lie, you get kicked out of the program, like immediately. They catch you in the smallest lie. So you have to write like mean things about people, essentially. That's what they're looking for. And I was like, I don't want to get kicked out for everyone disliking me, you know? So I did a rapport build with everyone, which was that genuine praise. I knew everything about everyone. I was like, hey, tell me about your life. Like, where are you from? What farm? Wow, tell me more. And I'm a naturally curious person. So I actually want to know, but I really like doubled down on that relationship building process. And my trainer at the end of the program, she said something to me, which I'll never forget. She said, I've done this training program for 7 years and just 2 classes of 32 per year. So that's a lot of people. And she said, you're the only person in that 7-year stretch with the 14 classes where no one in the group has critiqued you and said you're a like bad person or made fun of you or like threw dirt at you essentially. And she's like, I don't know what you've done, but that's like whatever you've done, like keep doing it. And so I was not the best cadet. I was not the best person in the group morally or physically or cognitively, but I showed sincere praise with people, and that built that rapport to the point where that no one felt the need to shoot me down. So that was an example where like I can objectively say that this technique objectively works, as of subjectively I've had some success. Maybe there's other reasons for it. It was literally that strategy that got me that outcome. When I was working at Interpol, for example, I've found myself in unique scenarios. So it works across cultures as well. One time I was in Nepal and I was in the head of the police college there. And there's many colleges, so there's many, but there's one particular college that I was physically at. We were looking at creating some training programs for law enforcement officers in that country. And we sat down, and sometimes in policing, you get like this crazy, like macho stare down kind of thing. So the general or the officer in front of me, the super high ranking officer, like sat down and we just stared at each other for like 45 seconds. It was probably 10 seconds, but it felt like forever. And we're just doing like this intense stare down. And if you look away, then you're not a man or something like that. So I was like, okay, I'll play this game. So we did the stare down. He smiled, I smiled, and then we like built that like initial level of rapport. And he said something like, what do you want? He's like, we get lots of international staff here, like trying to do this. Like what do you bring to the table? And instead, I initially thought, I should just start with our pitch. Like, our training program is really good and you should buy our investments, you know? But I was like, no. He had some stuff on the table, and one of it was a picture of his family. And so instead of answering his question, I said, tell me about that picture on your desk. And he goes, oh, this is my daughter. This is my son, like blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, like, where did you grow up? Where did you go? Where are they now? And he was actually in Kathmandu. And there was like his family was actually living in sort of far away, so he didn't see them very often. And I was like, tell me about that place. And we talked for like half an hour. And I remember my Interpol partner was beside me and was not aware that I was doing this rapport build and was just like, what is happening? Like, why aren't we talking about like the school? But the whole time I'm talking about the school, you know? So we talked about his family. It was really good. And then at the end, he was like, yeah, like come over for drinks after, which is common. They do that anyways because they're polite society there in Nepal. But it was like, he was like, come over and like have some food and it's gonna be great. Some momo, some classic Nepalese food there. And so he like embraced us as like brothers, you know? But at the beginning of that interaction, he was like, I hate international staff. Like, you guys all talk big game, but don't do anything. And so that was an example where like that rapport was so strongly built so quickly that he really felt a bind to me and I felt a bind to him because we were having that nice reciprocity. And not many people give that nice attention. So this is a good technique, and I've had it work on me too. I was managing some staff in a different role, and I I had one staff member who would like call, we did like a daily call on Mondays, and she would just like talk to me and ask nice questions, like doing the exact same thing that I would do to other people, which is just like genuine appreciation for the person and attention. Like she gave me attention. So she'd be like, how was your weekend? What did you do? Tell me more about that. Whether she actually liked what I was doing or not, like we had a good conversation anyways, but I was like, man, like this girl's the best, like promotion. Like in my mind, I'm like, I want to support this person, right? So if it works on me, it's going to work on other people for sure. And essentially that technique has helped me from girlfriends to friends to the workplace. And it's got me in bizarre rooms that I can't even tell you about, like all over the world, especially with Interpol, right? If you make some friends with some people in a foreign country, you'll end up in weird rooms and it'll be a lot of fun. You'll find yourself in places you have never thought of possible in the world, you know? So I found that this technique has propelled me career-wise and in life way farther than almost any other technique. And I'll leave it at this one as a good example. When I started the finance role, I learned this technique, and I talked to the mining guy, but I was, inspired by this example. And the parking was really expensive in Vancouver. I'm sure it still is. It was like, $30 a day or something like that, but that was like in 2011. So it was like, $1 million today. And it's just really expensive. And so I occasionally would drive my car in, but normally I just take the bus and stuff. And after a few months of being at that office, I actually drove my car in and I parked. And there was a gentleman in the parkade who was from South Asia. So I believe he was from India, or no, Pakistan. And he was an older gentleman, and he was just sitting there, and like we would smile, that awkward smile where like you don't talk, like them, but you've never actually uttered a word. And so after a couple of times seeing this guy, I eventually just said like, hey, I'm gonna give this guy some attention because like it's just lonely in the parkade, like you can't see anything. Like he said at the front gate. And I said, what's your story? Which is my favorite line. I don't say, what do you do? But I go, what's your story? Tell me. And then within whatever they say, I'm just going to drill down on that. And he said, oh, I'm just here because my grandkids have moved to Canada and I'm just trying to get a little extra money because my pension from Pakistan isn't high enough to pay for everything or whatever. I said, oh yeah, tell me about Pakistan. And it turns out that this dude was like a super high ranking general in the Pakistani military and had this really interesting career and had done a bunch of wild stuff. And so we chatted for half an hour, which I didn't expect. I just wanted to say hi and just kind of be friendly. But at the end, he said something in broken English, of course, I'm paraphrasing, something like, oh, no one says hi to me. I appreciate your time. And so we became best friends immediately. And in that conversation, he said, oh, there's actually a parking spot and where his gate was. And there was cones were in the way. It was for security vehicles and stuff like that. He goes, listen, he's like, if I'm here, he's like, I'll just if that spot is open, you can just take it. So just always wave at me and I'll guide you in. And so for the 2 years or whatever that I was at this office, I got free parking just because I gave that person attention. And I've got many examples, and I would bring him food and stuff, and we had a good relationship for the time that I was there. So it was reciprocity. I didn't just take advantage of that. But the key there is that just because I gave that person attention, which is rare, it's rare for people to get that, and compliments where compliments were due, genuine praise when it was appropriate to do so, that propelled me socially and it's put me in good positions in general. And I have good relationships with almost everyone I engage with, even the people I dislike, because I can still appreciate them where credit's due, and I can learn from them what not to do just as much as what to do. So it's you can talk to anyone at any time and give them that attention. And it's it's gold. It's the currency that everyone wants. Everyone wants that attention, including me. So I hope that's it. I just wanted to share that because I think that's useful for somebody out there. And I hope you have a great day, and I will catch you on the next video.